Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back from the lunch break. I hope you had a wonderful time. And my name is Anna Rosmanit. I come from the DMP, the edX, and I would like to introduce you now to Mike Gray. We like to give him a very warm welcome because he's a last-minute substitute for Niels Kropaski, who used to give this presentation. So, Mike, welcome to stage, and yeah, have fun.
Thank you. Guten Tag. That's the end of my German, I'm afraid. Apologies, it's going to be in English today. I work at MIQ, which, if you don't know MIQ, we're a global programmatic media company, which is essentially how we work with our agencies and clients around the world on their kind of digital media. So I've been put in last minute to talk you through how we effectively use data for our clients, and also for any marketers in the room, how we see you can use your data to find consumers where they want to be found and don't mind you using their data. So I'm going to start with some raise of hands questions. Do we have any marketers in the room? Okay, couple, brilliant. Agencies, work at agencies, ad tech. There we go. All right, cool. MIQ, as I said, work with multiple clients over the last 10 years of how we essentially execute their programmatic media. A big focus for us around the globe, so we have footprint everywhere in the world, and pretty much where you've got addressable media. We have offices and people on the ground to run that. Big part of MIQ is around our people as well, so nearly 1,000 people. From 2 people 10 years ago to today. And that's a big focus around when we talk about our technology and our data and our insights is also fueled by our people. We call it AI plus HI, human intelligence. So we have big trading teams, account management teams across the globe that support our clients on running programmatic campaigns. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is trying to keep it less cookieless, because we've all been in this presentation today. I think everyone's bored about the death of the cookie already. It's not even happened yet. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about how MIQ are approaching more solution-based areas for us in the next couple of years. So as we know, they'll be replaced eventually, and that will be essentially for us, and how we're working with it will be around authenticated IDs, anonymous solutions. So some of the challenges that we'll see in the next couple of years, and we'll talk you through that, how we're addressing it. And then also from an anonymity perspective, we will look at things like cohorts-based contextual strategies that we'll start to build in the future, and that will address how obviously the cookie is disappearing. And then the final kind of challenges that we're seeing in the next couple of years will be essentially how data will start to live in clean rooms environments. Quick raise of hands, a knowledge of clean rooms. Okay. Van's a maybe, so that's a good MIQ. We'll talk about that as well in terms of how MIQ are working across clean room environments, what that means for our consumers, what that means for our clients, and what that means for their data. So the 3 areas that I'm going to address today is contextual signals. So MIQ has primarily been built around contextual signals, data partners, data signals that you can see to build audiences, whether it be predictive or prospecting through to retargeting. Talk you through how MIQ are addressing that. We'll touch on data clean rooms. I'm not a data clean room expert, but I understand how they work. So we'll reference there how we're working with our clients and our brands, of how they're utilising that and ensuring that their data is privacy first. And then we'll touch on authenticated IDs. So the immediate solution that we're working with some of our clients that can supplement a cookieless future. So the reality is that today, as I said, primarily when we're thinking about MIQ running programmatic media campaigns, we need to connect data to deliver personalized omnichannel campaigns. So primarily around web cookies, as we know, but then also leading into things like IP addresses, mobile device IDs. Those identifiers, as we know, are starting to erode. So as we already seen, Firefox and Safari, cookies deprecated, and then also in the future, Chrome also executing on their plan when they get there. So that starts to create a few issues when we think about the base execution of programmatic campaigns. So for us, it's a case of MIQ sitting in the middle of some of that, and then utilizing some of the new tools that are available, but then also creating tools ourselves to address that. So where we're looking at walled gardens, where we're looking at contextual strategies, through to industry identifiers, which I'll touch on a bit later on. All the future demands that we're kind of making sure that all works together, and we're not losing any connectivity throughout that. Big part around things like measurement as well, in terms of like the future of programmatic media campaigns, how we're tracking and measuring successes. So the first bit we'll talk about is contextual signals. So we talked about it before in terms of MIQ's approach to running programmatic campaigns. For the future, contextual signals being extremely key. Previously, when we started building out our kind of contextual strategies, it's around the fact that context is key and context is the new cookie, essentially. So we're starting to think about how we utilize all of our kind of 180 data partners globally, and using those data sources to build out anonymous data sets. Drawing in on existing partners that we have, but first-party relationships that we have across the globe that can enable us data signals that can start to sculpt contextual cohorts for us. That's the signals being kind of micro, macro data sets. So I'll go into a couple of, unfortunately, UK specific examples for this, but where we're thinking about census data, when we're thinking about land registry information, all kind of publicly available data sets that can come through our partners, but that will give us rich insights into things like postcodes. When we're thinking about geolocation, it's an area we can start to build out contextual strategies that are based through some of our partnerships. That will enable us to build out and understand key features. So that point about postcodes, we'll talk about that in terms of examples of cohorts, but the plethora of kind of data that we have available currently continues to be really prevalent when we're thinking out building contextual data sets. So from left to right, you've got geo there. So as reference, we've got postcode data that we start to build out specific strategies around. And then that can go through all of the micro, macro factors through to audiences that we have, demographics, information, micro, macro factors. So what impact does the weather have on running an automotive campaign is stuff that we can overlay. And then we can also look at things like affluence through to the other end of the spectrum, which is where we start talking about syncing products. So using things like social sentiment that can have an impact on programmatic campaigns. So whether it's positive or negative, how could that change your bidding structure? How could that change the benchmarks that you're looking to achieve? In Sydney, for example, we have a unique partnership which is called Shark Sync. So any CMOs in the room that want to win an award to syncing with shark attacks and how that impacts your programmatic campaign, one to think about in the future. But that's the sort of level of granularity that you can ingest in terms of our partnerships across the globe. Another like UK-centric example here is around postcodes. So smart highways is a big thing in the UK, where we're starting to implement those. One of our clients that we work with, also as an automotive manufacturer, wanted to start to score the likelihood and propensity of people being interested in car MOTs based on MOT failures, based also in relation to the proximity to motorways that they lived in. So we started to build out a very bespoke, unique data set, essentially for them to utilize, where they were looking to categorize some of these factors that you can see on screen, distance from the motorway, their demographic, their age, and then we start to give them a scoring based on their MOT failure likelihood. These are the sort of data sets and very, very unique, still contextually available scoring that we can overlay onto campaigns. And then when we've built that kind of, I guess, call it a unique data set, we can then start to think about how do we then access that in a programmatic world. So if we stick with the automotive example, what we would start to then build out from a trading execution function is what we define as a custom algorithm. So utilizing all of the kind of KPIs and the benchmarks that the client's looking to achieve. If we start off with a goal of return on investment, we could start to modify our bids via the algorithm that's written specifically to achieve the outcome that they want to deliver. So if you look at the example here, looking at a low kind of new car density versus a high new car density, fairly obvious, but you start to see that the bid multiplier starts to change based on the kind of weightings that we want to achieve. So if we then overlay kind of census data, which is like a low and a high affluence area, that will change the bid modifier in terms of the impression and audience that we're looking to achieve. the algorithm would also then start to moderate in terms of like what devices are working. So the bid modifier would look to actually those impressions or those people we're trying to target far more effective on mobile versus desktop. And then also with that kind of unique data set that we've built on a postcode level, we overlay that and say, actually, those users aren't near a dealer; they are nearer a dealer. So the bid multiplier would start to go up. So we start to pay more for the impressions that we want to and the audiences that we want to win. Final point about the macro factors there as well is like in terms of like if you're looking at automotive, depending on what that kind of outcome is, if the weather's good and we see that the data dictates that people are more interested in looking at cars or going to show courts or research online, that's another kind of macro factor that we would overlay into this custom algorithm, which would adapt our bidding. How does that look in reality? So to put a case study and just to talk you guys through how we've worked with Subway in a similar sort of fashion. And again, kind of thinking about not personally identifiable data, how can we use that for kind of scaling programmatic campaigns? So this example is with Subway in the UK. So we work with a partner in the UK that also has access to telco data. So telco data, which will enable people to look at aggregated and anonymized app usage. So Subway were very keen to utilize that sort of data approach on how they could utilize their third-party delivery services. So working with the Subway being in the likes of Deliveroo and Uber Eats, how can they start to showcase awareness within those app environments? So we use that to identify those that had third-party delivery apps installed on their devices, and then combine that with location from mobile devices, data that we had, overlay multiple different data sources that will enable us to then start tracking within a 2-mile radius who is going to be the effective audience that we can start to put those messages in front of. So we then building up that data pool and then using that kind of, I said, anonymous kind of aggregated data, we could then start to activate programmatic campaigns to deliver messages. Within that, we also then ran a brand lift study, which, as you can see on the right hand side, a massive result in terms of targeting nearly 500,000 of unique targeted consumers, making them aware that Subway is available on those third-party delivery apps. Also, with the brand lift up study, we saw a huge percentage increase there as well. So I guess the 3 areas we talk about is when we're setting up campaigns or when we're setting up partnerships, we take obviously clients' goals, understand like the channels that are available. So we run omni-channel, we work multiple channels, anything that's addressable within a programmatic ecosystem. We start to take that and understand how we apply MIQ future-ready solutions through to predictive intelligence, through to custom bidding algorithms, as I referenced, and then that leads into multi-platform activation for us. And then for us, it's about, and our clients, it's about what they get out of that. So extremely high reach, differentiation of formats, big focus on return on investment, whatever that KPI is that they're looking to achieve. And I guess the kind of second area to touch on outside of then contextual and how we set that up is around touching on identity. So as we all kind of know, there's 2 routes and there's 2 areas that this is playing out in a dual ad ecosystem at the moment. So what we kind of define as the open web and then what we've defined as the closed web. So for us, the open web is we're starting to see kind of growth in programmatic slowing quite a lot and we not keeping up with demand. And then we're also seeing kind of measurement and tracking becoming a lot tougher in the open web. And then in the closed web, what we're seeing obviously is the big tech companies still continue to get bigger. So Google, Meta, Facebook still dominating there and ensuring that their walled gardens, for the right reasons, is obviously privacy first for both their consumers and their data. So what we're starting to see, and we'll touch on authenticated IDs, is like a big difference and how we could use both of those moving forward in the dual ecosystem. And then in terms of clean rooms, so clean rooms and the closed web. So touching on how clean rooms work, so we thought, why not put a Simpsons reference into a presentation? Why not? It's probably the easiest way for me to contextual kind of talk through how we see clean rooms at MIQ and how we operate. As you can see here, Homer's obviously at work. He's in a nuclear power plant, which has got nuclear waste, which obviously cannot leave certain areas. So the environment that's built there is essentially what can't be taken out of there. But within that, we can also, from an MIQ point of view, utilise our analysts and our data scientists to start to manipulate, maneuver, change stitch, connect data within these safe environments. So privacy first, in the sense of nothing can come out, but it can be tweaked and enhanced in the clean room environment itself. So for us, it's a case of our data science team and analytics team starting to understand how we can build repeatable workflows, build new custom metrics and models that we want to start to activate across programmatic campaigns as well. And then for us as well, it's the clients that we're working with bringing their data into that as well. So every client and partner that we're working with, fully encouraging in terms of having a first-party data strategy on a slide is a lovely thing, but actually utilising their first-party data effectively and how they can make it work for them, but then also keep the privacy for their consumers. Quick example of how that works in reality is the data clean room being an environment that we can start to build out new metrics. So the example you can see here is how we work with another automotive brand that wanted to start to understand the quality of their site traffic. So gone are the days where you looked at Google Analytics 10 years ago and you saw multiple unique users kind of all counting and registering as one person. In this scenario, we work with the client to start to build out a quality site visit metric. So they could start to score people going into their site and then looking at different parts of the site. So whether that's going through to the car configurator, through to looking at the location dealer, through to looking at the new models that are launched, understanding what the quality of that person going through that journey looks like, and then building that. So obviously looking at how we are running advertising campaigns as well. In a clean room environment, starting to define what that metric looks like. So you can see there, when we've started to build that out, we can obviously start to use that kind of new KPI or new metric to judge the effectiveness of some of the programmatic campaigns that we're then running there. So if we're getting a low quality site visit, we then potentially wouldn't look at retargeting. If we then start to use some of those models that are getting high scored visitors, we can then start to predictively model and grow lookalike audiences there as well. For us, it enables us to enhance our kind of audience targeting, and then some of the kind of the results that you'll see there is that prospecting new users obviously effectively in a contextual kind of features drove a 50% lower CPA in terms of what the metrics that we were using as a quality site visit, and then we also saw a sort of a 16% improved efficiency on conversions versus some of the other A/B tests that we did. So for us, it's kind of like looking at clean rooms as an environment to obviously utilize first-party data, which is great. Then understanding actually what it means specifically for your consumers with your data, but then also thinking about how you can work with a partner to actually activate it. So for us, it's about kind of discovering, activating, and then getting the insights off the back of it. And in some of these examples, for this one example, we have a plethora of others where we obviously work in multiple different industries that have different KPIs, different targets. But for us, in terms of the clean room environment, it's a case of making sure that we're actually making use of the data rather than going through a tick box exercise of using clean rooms. Other part of this as well, I guess, from an MIQ perspective is not all of this can be automated. So we still need to reference data analysts and data scientists, solutions engineering talent, a lot of technical expertise that are able to kind of take a client or a business problem and then translate that into an outcome. And then the kind of third area that I'll talk you through is around authenticated IDs and the open web and how they are currently and will continue to work together. So for us, how does this work? I guess there's a good example here in terms of in the open web, as we know, essentially you can go across users as you probably go and logged into the D3Con website. You still need to utilize an email address in that process. Through to when you're looking at your publishers or you're reading consuming news. In the open web, the kind of key identifier there is essentially the email address. So from a kind of a privacy perspective, that email address can then be hashed and then anonymized, but then still exist as a very good authenticated spine that can be then passed into DSP and bidding platforms. So utilizing that sort of anonymized data can be enhancing programmatic campaigns. So we can do that on a continual approach from an MIQ perspective. And then when we're running those campaigns in the demand side platforms, clients that we're starting to work with and continue to work with also have their own first-party data to bring as well. So we can also go through the process of rich CRM first-party data that clients that we have that work with, which are primarily email-based, can be hashed and then anonymized and then utilized as essentially a very, very rich data set, which we can use. So we're working with a lot of our clients now on how we get authenticated IDs from them. And then looking at kind of moving forward at some of the identifiers, that you'll see a lot of ID solutions that are coming out, as we know. I think there's one of the talks earlier talk about the ID war, who's got the best solution. From an MIQ perspective, being quite agnostic, we always go down the route of using multiple different solutions and multiple different partners. So what we would always talk about is never specifically using one only ID solution, but using multiple solutions as well. Some of the kind of tests that we looked at where we overlap some of the solutions that we work with currently, there was only a 4% overlap between each of those solutions. So what we're talking about there is as scales and solutions grow, just make sure that you're utilizing multiple different partners and not putting all of your eggs in one basket in that sense. And then one of the things we kind of talk about a lot at MIQ and I guess broadly in the industry is around testing and learning, which is great. It's got to be done in practice. So what we're seeing now in terms of like the current ecosystem, as we know, the kind of trajectory of cookies is them being available now to then start doing very, very robust test and learn solutions, and then seeing how authenticated identity can enhance those campaigns. So we're running some campaigns, some retargeting campaigns with some of the brands, buying audiences via cookies, but then also looking at cookies plus authenticated ID solutions as well. What we see is start to see a massive increase in terms of efficiency, and then a massive increase in savings where the campaigns are getting far more targeted, but they're also getting more effective for us. So looking ahead, so what's the 4 areas that we're both MIQ and I guess by definition we're trying to focus on? The first one being around the cookieless scoping and continued research and development of solutions and alternatives in market. ADH functionality, so one of the clean rooms from a Google perspective. Continuing to iterate and learn and test and grow new metrics and new ways of working within those clean room environments. But then, as we know, other partners across the globe will continue to also have clean room offerings as well. So for us, from an MIQ point of view, ensuring that we're on top of all of those. The emerging kind of web standards, Web 3.0 through to Project ReArc from the IAB perspective, we continue to work closely within the industry bodies and associations to ensure that we've got like transparency around guidance, and that we're making sure that we're looking at things like legislation and privacy, and ensuring that we're compliant across what's currently there and what's to come in the future. And then, as I guess we talked a lot already, is the importance of first-party data as well. So for us, looking ahead, ensuring that we're ready for that. And we're continuing to iterate and use examples of how we can effectively use first-party data. So last couple of slides. So key takeaways for us, as we know, cookies are going away. Other IDs are eroding too. So they will ultimately be replaced by kind of authenticated IDs and anonymous data and tools there that will be activated within data clean rooms. And then for us, I think to wrap up is that at the current stage, using both of those approaches. So using authenticated and anonymous approaches so we can maximise reach, campaign efficiency, and scale as well. And then final slide, programmatic will always be data-driven. And then MIQ lives by the mantra of being agile, ensuring that we're taking risks and we're innovating and scaling. So big conversations that we're having with brands and our agency partners is making sure that everyone's always iterating and learning. Otherwise, you will be a little bit left behind. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Yeah. You have questions, actually. You have questions, actually.
Hello.
Hey,
That's it.
quick question about the subway example that you provided.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I'm good, thanks. When you're looking at customers and consumers who have the third-party apps installed, and you create the cohort and you go back and target them,
Yep.
what are you actually using as the targeting ID, like a device ID or email or?
What?
I'm just curious, once you've gathered that cohort, even though they may be not known to the actual advertiser, what is your actual specific mechanism that you're targeting them?
So for us, with that example, we would deem that as an additional data set that's ingested into a normal activation programmatic campaign that we would run. So the scenario works in the sense of two things for us. It's anonymized and it's aggregated. It's also app usage data, which is obviously not common anywhere in the world. That telco data then basically been built out into a specific data set that's then overlaid into our normal targeting of how we'd run a programmatic campaign, if that makes sense. So we would execute the campaign as we would run any programmatic campaign, whether it's contextual targeting, keyword, or demographics. We would then overlay also that kind of what we would define as that mobile app data set as well.
Can you be effectively targeting, like on the mobile number? That's what the...
It wouldn't be that to that granularity. It wouldn't be that level of granularity.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
No worries. Any other questions? We good? Go for it. Hey.
I really like the way you went through the start of that about third-party cookie stuff, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I noticed your second last slide was all around kind of people that take risks win. And there's a common theme, I guess, in the last session here, run by Silver Bullet, around German clients being hesitant to use first-party data. So where are the successes that you're seeing in the German market at the moment about pushing people to do new things? How are you getting them to do that?
Yeah, thank you very much, by the way. Great question. So I think we don't just specifically focus on only German campaigns when we're thinking about some of our larger partners globally. So I guess to quickly answer your question, if we have a global relationship with a computer manufacturer who operate in every market, we're using a lot of POCs and case studies from the US through to the UK that then enables us to have that conversation with clients in Germany. So we can, rather than saying, share your first party data on a promise that might not actually generate anything, we're using some of the examples that those similar brands with the same sort of first party data and identifiers available, executing that globally in their local markets and then presenting that globally into different markets. So some of the examples that we've got is the quality site visits metric we also did with one of the telco companies that we work with globally. That is a really good proof of concept that we can talk to the local markets about as well. Does that answer your question? I think it's the proof's in the pudding and the concept. But yeah, I think also for us it's leading with the outcome or the proposed outcome rather than leading with a promise or just an industry topic. That's how we're positioning it into different teams. Cool. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.